Hey, it's Michael Ferrari with Nashville Music Network. We're so excited to get started with this podcast. We're going to be talking about the music night that's happening March 8th, and we hope that you can watch with us and just watch these podcast episodes and you'll figure out what the whole thing is about. Thanks so much for being on this ride with us.
Well, welcome back, everybody. We're so excited to have this conversation again with Music Night founder Dean Sell. And I guess the big question that everybody wants to know is, how are you feeling? The announcement came this week, and we're all pumped. But, as the guy holding the reins, how are you doing?
Am I holding the reins, Michael? Is that what that is?
I think so.
Yeah. I think better than I anticipated. Yesterday was the, public announcement, and wasn't really sure what to expect. Was it going to be something that was noteworthy, remarkable, or was it just not? And so, spent the day trying to make sure that links are working and posts are happening. I would say it felt good to have the cat finally out of the bag. This thing that has been developing behind the scenes that I've been spending so much time and energy on. And not that it was necessarily a secret, but just to kind of put it out there and finally publicly just see how are people going to respond to it. And I would say the thing that was the most encouraging was so we Tuesday night, we're scrambling. Like, we had a plan, we thought, but we realized that there were some details about the plan that weren't quite decided yet or articulated yet. And so, how are we going to do posting? And we had a lot of community support, but we didn't really talk to them about what are they posting and what time. And so,
Right,
to
right, right.
really, yeah, narrow in on, hey, we're going to do these, collabs with, all of these community partners. And the thing that was the most encouraging was all of them rallying around and saying, absolutely. And so I think that the biggest success yesterday was having a singular post that was connected across, CMA and Nashville City and Tennessee State and Analog and Hutton, Fathom Entertainment, NSAI, all the community partners that have rallied around this thing, Bobby Bones, to all sort of in sync together, participate. And so that was the most encouraging. And I hope it really captures the spirit of what this is, that this is, not some big corporate backed something, which is nothing wrong with that, right? But just what this is very grassroots and independent and, community rallying together.
Well, it's so cool. It's funny you say that because, I saw the post, the Nashville Music Network post, because, I was following you. And then I started like looking at the tags and then finding different people, entities that were that were partners in it. As I'm a relatively new addition to the team, so I haven't been part of a lot of the conversations about who all the partners are. So I started like following all these different entities and going and following Fathom Entertainment, and it was fun for me to like go on the journey and see who all these people are and that everybody's talking about it. I've dropping like albums and different projects in the past. I know the fun and the sort of excitement that comes with that moment. And then there's always like, if I don't do a good job of tempering my perspective, so like I'll get like caught up in it, and then there's this huge crash at the end.
Yeah.
But I think what's different is with an album, in some ways, all the work happens up to launch, and then of course, you're gonna whatever tour and play and promote in support of it. But in this case, there's a lot of work that happened before the announcement, but a lot of the work still has to be done. And so it's like kind of cool in the sense that now you're just broadening the circle of people who know about it. And being kind of on the team, but also a consumer or an observer of the project is exciting.
Yeah. Well, I've never been, a big social media person. Not because I'm against it, just I've never really felt like my life was that interesting to share. And there's something, I don't know, just vulnerable about it that I've always felt, and so it was, kind of a big, just personal like hill for me to get over. Like, hey,
Yeah.
even doing this conversation, it's like, inviting people into this thing that you were a part of making. When I've done things in the past, it was always as an employee at a company. And so I was a part of a much broader team. It was the brand or the organization that was doing it, and this one is different, because being the genesis of the idea, being the one that's championing it. And so yeah, but you're right. The work is just beginning. Launching it is one thing and different from a film, which just want to make sure that people understand this is not a film. This is not a movie, right? And it's hard because we don't have language for it, common language for it, because it's not a common occurrence. A live broadcast into movie theaters, we're going to watch something in real time.
Right.
But different from a film or a television show or anything else that's pre-recorded, you have it in the can, and then you're pulling pieces from it as part of your marketing campaign.
Right.
For this one, it doesn't exist yet. Like
Right.
we haven't shot the show, you know? And so that's become a real obstacle for us. How do we communicate what this is when it doesn't exist? How do we visually display content when we don't have a show yet?
Yeah.
So we had a day of kind of marketing content, promotion capture back in, it's around Thanksgiving. And so we have some content that we shot with Bobby and with the songwriters at the analog. But yeah, it's been a real challenge. I mean, like, how do we continually now keep the campaign interesting and fresh content when we don't have the actual show yet?
Sure. Yeah, it's like it reminds me of the joke about Dateline, NBC, the crime documentary show where they only have one picture and they just keep like zooming in
Yeah.
and moving across the screen. But it's interesting because I've started to talk about it now, and there's one of my neighbors is the former founder of a metal record company that then sold to Sony back in the 90s. And their big band was Mastodon, who's, obviously
Mm.
still around. And I was telling him about this project. And it was actually really easy for me to say, it's like a songwriters forum, but it's live and simulcast in theaters live. And he was like, "Oh, wow, that's really cool." So in some ways, the word of mouth quotient is almost your top marketing opportunity
Yeah.
because in a few words you can explain what it is, and everybody knows what a movie theater is, and they can imagine what a songwriters forum is, and then they can just kind of glue those things together in their mind. To your point, creating visuals that illustrate that without words is tough when you don't have any. So I suppose you could go to Chat GPT and be like, show me,
Yeah.
some crazy image. But I think from the very beginning, the trailer that you showed me, which was in its rough early stages, so inspiring. The energy that I feel about the project now being on the inside
Mhm.
um, it's still there, still going from that initial concept.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that that concept trailer will never see the light of day for most people,
Yeah, right,
and
right.
I've got a great friend and collaborator here in Tennessee, in Derek, that worked with me on that, and he's just really talented at being able to communicate emotionally, what a story is trying to convey. And so, man, we're learning so much because concept trailers, you're just kind of gathering found source material, but it's not something that you can publish commercially. And so what we found ourselves with was a 2-minute concept trailer when you started to identify all of the things that we couldn't use because
Yeah.
we didn't own it, whether it was music or it was, footage. And I think out of 2 minutes, we probably had 30 seconds worth of material that we could actually keep, So
Yeah.
it's been a real challenge. So what's been released to date is really a teaser. What's forthcoming are some promotional pieces that we have done with Bobby. And then what we're trying to build is a recreation of that concept trailer, but really just clawing and scratching at where can we find footage that we can use that also, visually looks like what the show is going to look like. There's a particular look that we're going for. I mean, there's lots of kind of live stream quality stuff, that wasn't super highly produced of songwriter shows. And that's not what Music Night is going to be.
Right.
Music Night is meant to be, a live cinematic experience. And the way that
Right.
we're approaching it, going to be in movie theater. So it has to be the best looking picture, the
Yeah.
best sounding audio. So, lots of work happening behind the scenes to still create content and make
Yeah.
sure that it feels like what the show is going to feel like.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this was like the episode I was the most excited to film because the sort of inherent and latent sort of energy and excitement around what this is going to be is
Mm.
simple to pull out. You just say, "How's it going?" And on a personal level, I'm glad that you're doing well the day after the announcement. It's a lot to think through, and in some ways, there was like always probably an escape button in the back of your mind before you've announced it, where it was kind of like, I could always bail on this if I need to. And like now it's kind of like that's for sure gone. So anyway, and maybe that's not how your mind works, but
Oh no, it's how it works, man. I mean, you're touching on a nerve, that was a huge part of daily conversations with my wife for months. I mean, very exhaustive for her.
yeah,
We would go on walks, and I'd be like, babe, we can still, flip the kill switch on this, right? We can back out of this. Like there aren't that many people that know about it.
right,
Is this the wise thing to do? Are we sure we want to do this?
right,
And the date kept getting closer and closer where we would make decisions that felt like the accountability bar would just keep, increasing and increasing. And, we'd have to save face a little bit in, industry relationships or, personal relationships. And it was funny, Michael, because so many people were understanding of that. I remember having a conversation with CMA and just trying to be really clear in the early part, as we were trying to present what the idea was and see if there was an opportunity to partner in some way, shape, or form, and just saying, hey, we're not sure if this is going to happen. This is, we think it's going to happen. We still have to raise money. We still have to figure out how to fund it. And I remember I was on a Zoom call with them, and this was probably October, November, and they're like, so what's the likelihood? Like, where are you at? Is this actually happening? I'm like, and it seemed like every conversation was, I'll know more next week.
yeah, right.
So here we are, and yes, there is certainly a much higher accountability now. It's like there's no backing down now. If my wife were here, she would say, there was no backing out,
Yeah,
months ago. Like we're doing this thing. So I've really learned a lot about her faith and confidence and belief, and really the power of belief.
yeah,
And so, yeah, I mean, there's still a lot that has to happen. It's live, and so there's a lot of technical things that have to work together between all of the things in the room, out to the uplink truck being beamed up into outer space, hitting satellite, in outer space, down to hundreds of locations across the country, their projectors. I mean, all the things, they all have to work
yeah,
together.
yeah,
But that's part of what makes it special, is that it's not something that you just kind of like flip a switch and it just goes.
yeah, yeah,
So yeah, and And I think people are, my kids have long been captivated by things that are live, even when they were little. Like, is that happening right now?
Right.
And if it wasn't, you could watch like just a little bit of diminished sort of
Yeah.
something, right? But if it was, there was this like little bit of wide-eyed wonder that happened. Like
Yeah.
that's happening right now, you know?
Right.
That's part of this is there are lots of pre-recorded things in lots of places. There are very few live in real time happening in movie theaters where you get to experience it as it's unfolding. It's not the first time. I mean, I went and watched Coldplay in a movie theater live from South America, and there was something really just wondrous about it. Like, wow, that's happening right now, you
Yeah.
know? So yeah, that's a big part of this walk right now is this thing is unfolding in real time. We don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's part of the journey.
Well, it's cool. You have a lot of really expert, talented partners, people who have done this many, many times before. So that that part of it has to be somewhat comforting, knowing that you've teamed up with the right people. So, I want to obviously I want to honor your time, and we wanted to try and keep the conversation tight and short. So I
Mm.
really appreciate you opening up to us about how you're feeling. I know that these are big asks and deep dives for you to talk about your sort of personal space.
Yeah.
Um, but I know, people value thoughts about when somebody who creates something, the thoughts about how that came to be and what the impact is of that then coming into the world. I know
Mm.
I do. So,
Well,
um,
man, I thank you, Michael. And most people, don't know this, but you've been a huge part of this. You were a huge inspiration to me. The music that's in the teaser, the music that's in all the promotional pieces and the trailer is music that you wrote. And the way that it came about is just sort of unbelievable. We had this concept thing and we had music in there and we couldn't use that. And you and I had been talking about, hey, how do we just do something together on this? And you're like, I've got a catalog of stuff. And all of a sudden you pull out this music track. And we're like, that's it. That's perfect. I mean, we had to go through a bunch of iterations to refine some things and make sure tempo and changes and, guitar hits and all those things were right. But anyway, that's what I think has been the most gratifying about this. And I hope is continuing to be as we go through this is just this sort of grassroots and ability to really help and serve and partner with this creative community of people that were giving an opportunity to work on something that they haven't had before.
yeah,
Whether it is the songwriters themselves, whether it's Bobby. I mean, Bobby's done a lot of things,
yeah.
but he never hosted a live show broadcast in the movie theaters before.
Wow. Okay. Right.
So yeah, and for you and for all the others that are working behind the scenes, it's so fun to be able to come together and collaborate and create something that hasn't existed before.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we're gonna keep chugging away, and can't wait to see the finished product. I'm very excited.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Yep. Have a good one.